Welcome to the Next Normal podcast. We engage in conversations with experts from various industries to help you prepare yourself for a rapidly changing world. My name is Maria, and I'm joined by my co-host, Alicia.
Today we have with us as our guest, Emma Todd, the CEO of MMH Blockchain Group, which specializes in development strategy, marketing, and corporate communications for technology companies. She's also an executive board member of Blockchain for Impact, which works alongside the United Nations. Emma, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Persons sometimes equate or reduce blockchain to Bitcoin. For those of us who are unfamiliar with the sector, can you give us a breakdown of what blockchain is? Okay. And then tell us a little bit more about your role in the industry.
I understand when people think of blockchain, think of Bitcoin. Blockchain's actually been used to create Bitcoin. And then when they looked at this amazing technology, they realized, oh my gosh, there's so much that we can do with it. We can use it to create all these great things, such as supply chain. We can look at it for digital identities. So it's a really great thing that this technology has created. It's trustless, which means you don't necessarily need to know the other person on the other end that's using it. You can't hack it, which is great. So once you've put something on the blockchain, it's there. Nobody can go in and alter it, which is really something that we need. You can use it to track things, which is why so many people in supply chains are using it right now. It's really a game changer, and I'm so happy that everybody looked beyond the Bitcoin to see, okay, what else can this technology do? And they realized blockchain's a really great thing. So what are people doing right now, right? Everybody's at home. The amount of posts I see with people buying stuff from Amazon and other things online, right? So what do you need to do? You now need to, there's going to be an online rise in fraud. So you need to verify that the person is who they say they are, and that's digital identity. And some of these great blockchain companies are coming up with great solutions for it. And that's a really quick explanation of how, we're seeing a new rise in companies that are using blockchain technology for something that no one really saw coming, or no one really thought was going to come in our lifetime, but it's here.
Yeah, everything's definitely quickly changing, and lots of pivoting happening right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With all the pivoting that's happening, last year, blockchain was referred to being the expediting factor to achieve the UN 17 Sustainability Development Goals. Mm-hmm. So for example, you mentioned Amazon. I know there's going to be a lot of questions about how can you be sustainable with their packaging and stuff. Another development goal was in terms of climate action. Mm-hmm. So fast forward to today with everything that's been happening the last several weeks, how do you see blockchain's contribution to these goals changing or perhaps further expediting them?
I was just thinking this morning that I was just so impressed because UNICEF, the children's arm of the United Nations, they actually have a Bitcoin fund, which is just absolutely impressive. Who would have thought 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, when I was still in banking and nobody knew what Bitcoin was, that fast forward 4 years later and they have a Bitcoin fund. They will accept Bitcoin funds the US, Australia, and France in those funds. Another thing that blockchain is being used for is social good. Something that I'm really passionate about is the average everyday farmer who's working. He's not getting very much money, but he's a nice coffee farmer somewhere, and we're using those great coffee beans. People are going and they're paying $5, $6 for coffee, and that farmer gets 17, 18 cents. They have built a supply chain for blockchain that you can actually go back and you can tip the farmer themselves. Centr's built it. So you can actually go back and say, I'm having a great cup of coffee. You can tip your server, and you can also tip the farmer, which is something I really believe in because they are the unsung heroes. They're out there. They're actually literally doing the back-breaking work. And this is a really good way to reward them.
That's going to change the way economics work to a certain degree. You're getting direct contact with the supply chain, essentially.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. And that's one of the reasons why I really like blockchain. It does kind of, in effect, cut out the middleman. And that's why banks are just sort of a little bit up in arms about Bitcoin, but they're now sort of embracing blockchain technology to see what they can use it for, because it cuts them out. If I have to send you money, I no longer have to go to my bank and then have the money transferred to you. I can just send it to you and you get it without me needing a bank. That's millions, trillions of dollars that, because we've effectively cut them out. who wants to give up their livelihood, right? So they're fighting for their way of life, and I understand it. And I think there'll always be a place for them because our parents will continue to use them. I think that the new generation is going to be like, no, there's a better way, and we don't need it.
That's amazing. So we've learned a little bit more about how international organizations are using blockchain technologies in Bitcoin, and a little bit more about how banks are potentially looking to either embrace or mitigate some of the disruption that will be caused by blockchain. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the different ways that countries are using blockchain. For example, with COVID-19, the US has proposed utilizing blockchain for stimulus payments, and China recently launched its blockchain-based service network and state digital currency in a few provinces. I'd love to know a little bit more about what are the ways that you would consider that this is a game changer in shaping the future, and other ways that blockchain technologies are being used at the country level.
What China is doing with their BSN blockchain network, it's smart. You can't deny it. It's if everything goes according to plan, it's going to work because it's basically a plug and play. You have a blockchain idea. What are you going to do? You're going to spend a lot of money on developers. They're going to build it. That's actually normally your biggest challenge. And something that people don't talk about, sometimes you get scammed, but you don't know, right? Because you're not a technology person, just a person with a great idea. And you go and you hire this great company, and they tell you they've built this blockchain network for you. And if you don't get it audited, you go ahead and you pay them. And then you discover, guess what? They didn't do what they wanted to, but you can no longer get a hold of them, right? So what BSN is proposing is plug and play. You say you want XYZ, you can go here, you can get it. The average cost per year is something like $400. Absolute game changer, right? So theoretically, it's good. A lot of big companies have signed up for it. Amazon, AWS, Google signed up to be one of the partners. A lot of Chinese companies like UnionPay. Are you ladies on WeChat?
I'm not, no. Are you, Maria?
Okay.
I'm familiar with the platform.
WeChat's it's really quite amazing. So WeChat is actually like Facebook, but you can use it for payments. And so people don't actually need to break out your bank card or anything anymore. You literally just use WeChat for everything. And so they're going to be able to integrate. UnionPay can also uses WeChat, so they'll be able to integrate everything with that. So blockchain is at its heart a decentralized network, but you've got a company saying, we'll centralize everything for you. You just come and you do, or a company, a government saying, you just come and, you just pick what you want, and we will, we'll make sure that everything works, but it's centralized. And that's the main problem that I have with it. So I have to do a little bit more research, but at the heart of it, you're saving money, it's doing what you want, it's just centralized too.
And I heard there like a lot of tension between the decentralized and the centralized, and I know that's a big part of blockchain. Can you tease that out a little bit more for our listeners?
If things are decentralized, you don't need a middleman. You don't need to trust the person who is on the other end that they will do what they said. When it's decentralized, it's already built into the code. When something is centralized, you've got the ability to hack into it. What do I mean? Last year, the year before, Equifax was hacked. Someone has your information. It's out there on the dark web. The hackers were able to access the information because it was on a centralized system. When things are decentralized, it's a lot harder to hack in.
Do you see an ongoing kind of push and pull between the decentralized framework and the centralized framework?
Definitely. I mean, until you can 100% prove that something works better decentralized, then there's always going to be a bit of a push and pull because people like what they're used to, and they're used to things being centralized. I will say blockchain isn't the end all and be all for everything. Some things just work better with a database. But if you can definitively prove that blockchain will work for your product, then why not go ahead and use it? My favorite example of it being used is Walmart. I'm sure you ladies remember 2018, there was a lot of lettuce and vegetables that were going to waste because they were infected. So they were throwing away bags and bags of lettuce because they had some sort of infection so people who ate it were getting sick.
Yeah, I told my grandparents to throw out all their lettuce and stuff.
All their lettuce and everything like that. And the major problem with that kind of broke my heart is that they weren't exactly sure where it came from. They weren't sure if it was this person's farm or this person's farm or this company's farm. So as a result, if you were in this state or this geographic and you happen to have a farm, any of your produce got thrown out. So this made Walmart think, okay, we need to be able to fix this problem because they're obviously losing millions of dollars. So what they did was they actually worked with Hyperledger, a really great company, Hyperledger Fabric. And what they did was they came up with this really great use of blockchain for supply chain that worked incredibly, incredibly well. And so now they can trace any product back, or products that are in the database, back to its original farmer. So to give you an example, one of the senior executives at Walmart, he went to just a nearby Walmart store. He bought, I think, mangoes, and he went back to the office and he said, okay, tell me where it came from. And so they got on the phone, they called their suppliers and distributors and everything. And almost a week later, they said to him, okay, we can tell you where it came from. It took them almost 7 days. And so they used that as their benchmark. And then they built the blockchain supply system. And when they went back, they can now tell where it's coming from in 2.2 seconds.
Amazing. So it sounds like this is another application of blockchain.
Exactly. So if it takes 2.2 seconds, there is absolutely no argument in the world for using anything centralized, right? We've just proven that blockchain works. It can make it more efficient, make things better, and it can help save lives.
At the Blockchain for Impact Summit at the United Nations that you actually co-chaired last year, you highlighted the need to ensure that women and women of color are engaged. In what ways do you see this sector supporting women and minorities? And what pieces of advice would you provide to those underrepresented groups looking to enter the field?
One of the things I absolutely loved about blockchain when I first joined is that it was this collection of people who were incredibly smart. They don't care what color you are, whether you're black, white, pink, or green with stripes. As long as you are smart and you can talk to them and teach them something that they didn't know, or have a good dialogue where they can learn something, that is great. I was at a panel on Parliament in Ottawa, and we were talking about challenges that women in technology have. And one of the things that I learned is that, and women really just want a few things. You want to make sure that your voice is heard. So when you're going to school to learn computer programming and computer engineering, computer technology, it really just starts with the teacher. Everything kind of comes back to your parents and your teacher, right? So making sure that you're heard, making sure that they're not making you feel inferior, because they're seeing that there's a huge dropout rate after the first year because ladies are just not feeling the same sort of respect that men get, and they just sort of feel as if they shouldn't be there. But when in the first year of university, right now it's averaging a 50-50 rate, but after the first year they drop out. So you really want to try and retain them from then. They want to have a flexible schedule. Women need flexibility to look after their family if that is a challenge. I will say that what I have learned for any woman that is out there, that you need an army behind you. So I have, various groups of women in blockchain and things like that. And we're there for each other, and we talk, and, we share ideas and we share things that are happening. Try and find your village, try and find your tribe. It'll help you out. So that's my suggestion.
That's good to know. It sounds like support and mentorship and sponsorship and fostering that sense of belonging is important for us all. I did want to ask, we started to talk a little bit more about the future of blockchain as it relates to pulling in more diverse candidates, but I just wanted to know the future of blockchain more generally. There were a number of predictions that were made about blockchain by 2030, including Gartner's prediction that blockchain will deliver some $3.1 trillion in value. Would love to know, what are your thoughts in terms of how COVID-19 has impacted some of those predictions and timeline?
So by 2030, people don't necessarily need to know the nuts and bolts of how something works. So you drive a car, right? You don't need to know about the combustion engine, everything that goes into making the car work. You just know that you get into a car, it takes you from point A to point B, right? Blockchain is meant to be a vehicle, an engine that helps you do point like A, B, and C. What we really want is for people to use blockchain so much that it's no longer a buzzword. It's just a way of life, similar to the internet. You're not really worried about the company, so you're not really worried about the industry and everything. It's just going to become, hey, people use this company and it's generated this and it's generated that. So, but we all know that the underlying framework is blockchain, but no one's really talking about it anymore because it's so much a part of everyday life.
It sounds like we're really talking about the future where blockchain is no longer a buzzword, but it's a technology that's in the background as a seamless and foundational component. When we get to that, as we start the process of getting to that future, this podcast is primarily designed to help our listeners to prepare for that next normal. So I'd love to know, what do you suggest that our listeners should be doing and reading and learning to prepare for this future?
I would say read as many articles. You can read a basic foundational book on blockchain. Don Tapscott's he wrote a book in 2016 that is really, really good. Just kind of gives you a good foundation of blockchain. After that, just start reading articles. Here's why. The industry changes so quickly. The problem with reading a book is that the information will generally be outdated. But this one gives you a good foundation for everything. But once again, this blockchain technology changes so quickly that what was relevant last week might not be relevant this week. Things change at a dime of a hat, which is why the blockchain community, you want to know where everyone is? We're all on Twitter. Why? Because it's such a vast community that when something happens, everybody's on Twitter to let everybody else know, because it changes that much. So that is our little repository of, keeping in touch with people and seeing what's happening. I can't tell you what's going to happen in 2025 because I didn't even know about COVID-19. What I can tell you that is that in the next year to 2 years, I can see that supply chain is going to continue to get bigger than it is now, and that digital identity is going to be a large thing because more people are going to be shopping online, and there's going to be more fraud, and they're going to be using digital identity to combat this, as well as just food traceability and things like that.
Perfect. So digital identity, supply chains, traceability.
Out of all of these incredible technologies that are coming out of blockchain, what are you most personally excited about that's coming out of the space?
I originally got into blockchain because I really liked what it could do in terms of remittances. So you sending money to, someone who is not in the same country as you, or even if they're in the same country, someone farther away. My friend just posted something up. I'll share it to you. It was insane. He just posted a few days ago on LinkedIn. Someone moved almost $1 billion in Bitcoin. And I think they paid $2.50 for the transfer. So when you see stuff like that, it makes you become aware of the fact, and this is what banks are fighting, that you're paying $60 to transfer $5,000 or $60 to transfer $10,000. And that's why banks are now coming up with these new innovative ways where they say to you, okay, you don't have to pay the transfer fee, which is fantastic, right? Some banks are saying that now, but guess what? The person on the other end who you send the money to, they're going to have to pay the fee, right? So even though you're not absorbing it, the person on the other end is absorbing it, and Bitcoin gets rid of all that.
Emma, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your insights. We look forward to hopefully having you on the podcast again.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad it was fun talking to you. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It was good. Just making me think about all these other things. And I'll be sure to send you guys the book from Don Tapscott so you guys can see it too.
Please do. We'll make sure to link it in the podcast so that our listeners can have access to these resources. And we just want to say again, thank you. This was very, very, very insightful.
You're welcome. It was fun. I enjoyed it.